we know that 20% of tours from phone calls, so again, those really high intent phone calls, are scheduled during after hours and weekends. And what we found in our contact center is that Saturday calls have the highest tour booking rate at 19.5%. So, really, Larry, what I would say is like I'm giving step by step instructions. I would honestly start by counting how many inbound calls you have coming in that are going unanswered. And even if you want to just like secret shop yourself, try during after hours and weekends. What is the process? How many times are you actually getting a hold of somebody versus not? That's a great place to start. And then once you kind of have some data, you can start to identify patterns and pinpoint where those leads are slipping through. And then you can go in and with a game plan. But what I've found talking with operators is unfortunately a lot of people don't know how much they're missing.
Welcome to The Move In, a senior living marketing podcast from Unlock Health, a full-service marketing partner for the aging services industry. Join us for candid conversations exploring the latest marketing strategies with the senior living community leaders and innovative solution partners who are moving our industry forward. Together, we'll build a community to build better communities. What story is your lead response time telling potential residents, and is it costing you move-ins? Hello, I'm Larry Williams, and welcome to the Move-In Senior Living Marketing powered by Unlock Health. Now think about this. Every unanswered phone call, every form field that sits idle, and every delayed follow-up, that's a missed opportunity. And in senior living, those moments send a message, and sometimes that message leads a family to choose a different community. Today, I'm joined by someone who knows exactly how to turn those missed moments into meaningful connections, Rachel Keller, VP of Sales and Marketing with Catalyst Senior Living Solutions. She's a true expert in helping communities optimize lead management and unlock real results. In this episode, we're diving deep into speed to lead, why responding within 10 minutes can make or break your conversions, high intent leads, what they look like and how to prioritize them, and lead management gaps, especially after hours calls and the challenges facing busy sales teams. If you're in senior living marketing, sales, or operations, this conversation will change the way you think, and it will give you the tools to tell the right story at every touch. We are back on the Move-In Senior Living Marketing. I have another friend of mine, Rachel Keller, with me today. Rachel, thank you for joining us.
Hi, Larry. Thank you so much for having me. We're going to have a lot of fun today. I'm excited.
I am excited. I know I'm going to learn a lot from you. We've gone back and forth about when you can join us, and I'm so glad you're able to make it. And as we were preparing for what we're going to discuss, I was like, man, I'm going to learn so much from Rachel. I got my pen ready to take lots of notes, because you mentioned you wanted to really discuss those lead management best practices. So I'm excited to discuss that. But before, I want you to really, introduce yourself. Listening to past podcast episodes, I've done a terrible job of introducing guests. So I'm going to correct that today and say, this is Rachel Keller with Catalyst Senior Living Solutions. Tell us what Catalyst does and the services you provide.
Sure. Well, I'd be happy to introduce myself and I'll share a little bit more of my story and talk about Catalyst. So, Catalyst Senior Living Solutions is all about lead management. So, we have two different offerings. We have a senior living specific contact center. So, what that means is all of the leads that are being generated through your marketing partners, anything that comes in from your website, form fills, phone calls, that all gets funneled to us. And we have that very first conversation, great speed to lead. And then we pass that over to the on-site community teams for a tour to take it from there. And then we also have financial advocates. So what that looks like is, let's say you have a lead that comes in, they tour, they want to move into the community, but they're like, I don't know how I'm going to afford this. You would refer them over to our financial advocates, where they work one-on-one with those families to get them financially able to move in through a pool of over 35 different resources that we have. So that's Catalyst Senior Living Solutions as a whole.
Well done. You did a great job with that quick elevator, explanation of what Catalyst does.
You got to get it quick. Nobody wants.
You did a great job. I was really impressed.
Well, thank you. Coming from you, I appreciate it. I know you're the marketing guy.
Marketing, that's why I'm really interested in this conversation, because we deliver the leads, but then it's that next step. So I'm excited about this. So, but before we go into that, Tell me about your story. I want to hear more about this because you are I'd say you're one of the influencers in the senior living
Well,
space,
thank
and you
you.
have such a strong voice. So I want to understand more about what got you to this place.
Well, thank you so much. And I would love to share my story because I'm very passionate about it. So, from the time I was 16 years old, knew that I wanted to be a national talk show host. And I was very type A. I created a 10-year plan of how I was going to get there. And part of that plan meant going to the best journalism school in the nation, which is Mizzou. I absolutely loved it. I studied broadcast, got to the end of my senior year, and our capstone class was taught by the dean of the journalism school. And the entire semester was on the journalism of outrage and how you can
Mm.
anger people every day with your storytelling. So at that point, kink in my plans, I went into a bit of a crisis and was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to anger people every day through my storytelling until I finally reach the top at this national talk show level. So I did a left turn and went into video storytelling for a while, where I told human interest stories in 3 to 5 minutes and tested out a different methodology. And my methodology was this: if you have someone share their experience, the hard times, the things that they went through, but then how they overcame it, people will see themselves in those stories and think, if they did it, then I can too. And instead of outraging people, they will be inspired into action.
That's
And that,
great.
thank you. And Larry, I feel like you're the same. Like, you're so positive. I love talking with you. You're just like inspirational in the way that you interact with people every day.
Oh, that means a
Um,
lot to me. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, yeah. So I tested that out and just through my connections stumbled in the senior living industry. But as people who are listening to this who may know me know, I cannot step away from the storytelling piece. And that's why you see all the other pieces out there that I'm constantly interviewing people.
It's so important. And it's
Mhm.
funny, I had this conversation with someone today about all the marketing activations and what
Mhm.
we can do with technology, but at its core, it's the story we're sharing. That's what connects
Absolutely.
people. And especially in senior living. I say
Mhm.
it far too often. We have the best stories, the residents and their stories, the communities themselves and the staff. These are great stories that need to be shared. And like you said,
Absolutely.
you're going to inspire others with these stories. So thank you for highlighting that. I think that's a big part of this conversation. So thank you for stating that, but
Mhm.
also just being a part of really promoting good. We need more of that in our world, is really to see the good and promote the good. So thank you so much for elevating positive stories.
Yeah, and it's interesting because one of our challenges as an industry is this negative perception of what senior living looks like, right? And it's because of what I mentioned. The stories that often get the most attention are the outliers of the negative, or
Yeah.
this perception of what it means to be in senior living. And like you mentioned, Larry, there are a million positive stories that we have. We just have to be able to focus on changing that narrative and getting those positive stories out there, which I think is great. And you guys can help with your services of helping tell those positive stories. So it is important, and it's us as an industry looking at what story do we want to tell and how can we work together to tell it.
Yeah, 100%. And it's funny you said that changing the narrative at a larger
Hmm.
level. I wrote that down right before you said that. And then the other word that comes to mind is intentional. We have to be
Hmm.
intentional about this. And it's really easy just to focus on connecting these dots, but we need to be really intentional about weaving the story into these activations and the technology. So again, that's why I was really excited about having this conversation with you, just because you're coming with data, but there's that storytelling element that you're really presenting this in. So I'm again just really excited about learning
Yeah.
from you today.
Well, and even if we want to talk about the lead management side, right?
Mhm.
What story are you telling your prospects and your potential move ins with your lead management practices today? Like, I even like looking at it from that angle because here's a common problem I see. Like, one of the main issues with lead management is that, we do not always respond quick enough when a lead comes in. We like to say as an industry that maybe the best benchmark or the average speed to lead is at 4 hour mark, right?
Hmm.
But
Okay.
what story does that tell the lead if you're not getting back to them right away? You're waiting 4 hours or even days, right?
Yeah.
That says, we don't care enough to get back to you quickly, right? Like, that's the
Mhm.
story that you're telling them, versus if somebody who takes their high intent, like, they really have done their research and they reach out finally, and you're getting back to them right away, what story does that tell?
Let me ask you this: is there a too soon to reach back out to them?
I mean,
Is
no
it?
one Yeah, good question, keep
It's,
going.
I know it sounds crazy. I just, at times you want a quick response, but you don't want it to feel transactional either. And so, just trying to find that balance can be challenging. I didn't know if you had any insight there.
I do, and that's a great question. I like to think about, what is it like if you need insurance or something, and you submit a form, and then all of a sudden, like, 20 people are calling you.
We've all been there.
What story does that tell,
Yeah.
right? And that's a great example, Larry, is like sometimes the speed also can tell a negative story. So we found best practice for our contact center. We've been around for 10 years. So we've been really able to test this and see like what's that sweet spot. We found that reaching out within 10 minutes is the ideal, not
Okay.
being annoying, but still being really persistent. And let me tell you some of the data around that. So your speed to lead impact on contact rate. Reaching out within 5 minutes, you will have a contact rate of 83%. Now let's go back to the 4 hours that we mentioned earlier. Let's say we're waiting a few hours to get back. That contact rate drops to 58%, and that comes from 1 million phone calls that we analyzed.
Wow.
That's a huge drop.
Yeah. That's significant, because it not only that you mentioned telling that story of, okay, th you don't feel as important, but at the same time, you give others the opportunity to jump in there, and fill that void of not response, and so I
Exactly.
know that that falls into place too.
I love that you mentioned that. So I'll give a practical example. There was one time recently, like my husband and I were relatively new into our new house. We've had it for about a year. And, there's always a lot of issues when you move in, right?
Always, yes.
And we were having a bug problem. And I'm like, all right, Mason, can you please take care of this? He's like, sure. So he calls a bug guy. They don't answer. What does he do next?
Call another bug guy.
Calls the next guy.
Yep.
The next guy answers. Guess who we went with to fix
Yeah,
our bug problem?
the person who responded first.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's like, if you say it in a simple story like that, it's like, yeah, I kinda do that too, right? And so why would we expect senior living to be any different? The person that
Mhm.
gets back to you very quickly versus the one down the road that didn't, which one are you gonna be more interested in going with?
Yeah, and I think that first group who responds also sets the tone.
Mhm.
And at that point, I think everybody else is kind of measuring up to them. So
That's a
you
good
have
point.
that speed to lead, but at the same time, you want to really have that positive feedback and positive, provide that positive, feeling and environment that makes them feel like, or there is that connection place already that you care about them. I think that's a huge win if you can, put those two together.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point.
So let me ask you this: not going back to the leads, like we all know that not all leads are created equal.
Mhm.
Do you have any data on really what measures up to really that high intent lead, or because I'm sure that also plays into that, that the speed of getting back to someone, because we're in a phase where we want to make sure we're placing content in front of people. We want to connect people with information, and sometimes people reach out to gather more information. Does that play into some of the data that you're seeing, which is if it's really high intent, reach out sooner. If it's a lower
Mhm.
intent, just kind of nurture? Where do you stand there?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we look at all the different channels that come in, and we're able to track with our clients, like what are all the channels that you're using for marketing, and seeing how does that convert down the funnel. So contact rate, tour scheduled rate, tour completed rate, and then lead to move in rate. So when we look at all those different channels, what's really interesting is the power of the phone call. So a lot of people kind of are hesitant, and marketers are hesitant to drive phone calls. Do you wanna guess why that might be,
Oh,
Larry?
yeah. People don't like picking up the phone, right?
Yeah, because if they may have a bad experience. So we're talking about
Hmm.
lead management. And the reason why is because salespeople are busy, right? Like
Yeah.
they have a lot on their plate. They're giving tours, they're doing home visits. Like a good salesperson is away from their desk. They're not able to answer the phone.
Yeah.
But what we found from again those million calls is that phone leads convert at 6.5% from the time it comes in all the way lead to move in rate. That's 5 times higher than the form fills we saw at 1.3% and
Oh,
nearly
wow.
2x the live chat at
That's
3.
that's
Yes.
incredible. Like those are significant numbers.
Yeah, and so I think it all comes to having a system in place, right? Like if you are a marketer who's listening to this and it's like, okay, I want to drive more phone calls because they're so high intent, then how are you going to have the lead management to support that?
Yeah. So, and you mentioned about the salespeople. They're busy. They're giving tours. They're on the road. They're connecting with people. And I know that's a challenge, but I know there's a variety of challenges of
Mhm.
really managing those phone calls and providing that. I'll say that positive first impression. What are some other challenges that you have uncovered?
Yeah, for lead management, another
Yeah.
huge one that I see like every single day is nights and weekend coverage.
Mm,
So what I'm seeing a lot in the industry is that people have a phone tree system typically for nights and weekends, or they rely on front desk to take in calls maybe up till like 7 or so, or they rely on their care team.
mm.
Those are the 3 main things I see, and all 3 are tough for getting those sales leads in,
I
because
get that.
if you think about it too, Larry, like you and I probably are like, we have flexibility, but I need to call the vet today, right? And I'm not going to have time to do it because I've got meetings all until 5 o'clock. So when can I call the vet? After 5.
Sure.
And our ideal client that's coming in, that adult daughter, whoever it is, like they're busy too. And they may not be able to call until after they have dinner done or
Yeah.
on weekends after a soccer game. And so as operators and as marketers, like, are you setting yourself up for success for the after hours and weekend sales leads?
Yeah, for sure. And I know we need to connect with people where they are in that moment. And so
Mhm,
I know the chats and the form fills don't convert as
mhm,
high, but that's when sometimes people are reaching out, late at
mhm.
night, just doing some research. But when it's time for them to make a call, I can see it being on the way home from work.
Yeah.
On Saturday when things finally calm down, they're not having to go to that kid's activity. So that's really important stuff that I feel like we need to focus on. And I imagine the groups that these calls are being routed to probably haven't had the best training when it comes to nurturing and having these conversations about those next steps.
Yeah, and it's also a retention conversation at the end of the day, because if you are relying on the phone tree system, obviously you have great salespeople. They're super dedicated. They're going to try and answer on the weekends when they can, but they also have to have a life. They're trying to make their kids'
Sure.
soccer games. And so if they're on call 24/7, how is that impacting burnout? And when they leave, and are they actually getting to every single lead right away as soon as it comes in, right? So it's kind of multifaceted.
Yeah. Speaking of the phone tree, one of my biggest pet peeves is when you reach out to a customer service or looking for information and you start having to, hit 2. Then you hear that message, and then you have to hit 4, and then you have to
Mhm.
listen, and then you going through that. I'm guessing that also is a huge negative. Like you need to have someone who is responsive and who's ready and willing to give information pretty quickly when they call in to make the process as easy as possible.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, with the contact centers, a lot of people hate contact centers and they're like, "Oh, I've been burned by a contact center. I can't trust a contact center." And so we have a lot of clients who sometimes want to do have a warm transfer,
Mhm.
which we're more than willing to do. where if a call comes in, first it goes to us and then we try and warm transfer it over to their sales team. But what we found is that the best sales teams are not available for that warm transfer because
Hmm.
they are out, doing tours or whatever it is. And that if they are available for a warm transfer, that usually means that they're not out busy conducting tours or whatever it may be. And from a lead experience, as you mentioned, the less like passing back and forth that they have to do, the better. They just want to be able to talk to somebody, be heard, and then have that next step ready to go.
Yeah. That's so important is be there, being willing and being able to help and answer those
Mhm.
questions. Are there any trends that you're seeing with this data of, ways to
Yeah.
improve? I'd like to hear your feedback on that.
Yeah. So we know that 20% of tours from phone calls, so again, those really high intent phone calls, are scheduled during after hours and weekends. And what we found in our contact center is that Saturday calls have the highest tour booking rate at 19.5%. So, really, Larry, what I would say is like I'm giving step by step instructions. I would honestly start by counting how many inbound calls you have coming in that are going unanswered. And even if you want to just like secret shop yourself, try during after hours and weekends. What is the process? How many times are you actually getting a hold of somebody versus not? That's a great place to start. And then once you kind of have some data, you can start to identify patterns and pinpoint where those leads are slipping through. And then you can go in it with a game plan. But what I found talking with operators is unfortunately a lot of people don't know how much they're missing.
Oh, sure, and having
Mhm.
that data is key, because you don't, know what's working or what's not working without that data, so I think that's really good, and it's funny mentioning about the data. I just wrote down, like, 20% with an exclamation point, just that blows my mind, and then I wrote down data queen. Like, I love the data that you're bringing to this conversation. This is good stuff. I'm just really impressed with that, and
Well,
so wait, go ahead, please.
I'm just even thinking about like, so then imagine then you have like your marketing agency, right? And then you have a contact center in place and they talk together. Like that's an operator's dreams. They want their vendors to work well together. It's like, think if you know that it's so high intent on the weekends and the phone calls are high intent and you have a great marketing partner in place and a contact center in place, think of what that could do to your bottom line. It's
Yeah.
significant.
I feel like so much of what we're doing is in terms of really those who serve senior living communities is helping to get all of these data points together because it tells
Mhm.
that full story. If we can do this, we can set up communities for success.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's so key. And you mentioned on the Saturday side, in terms of the calls, and you provided a lot of great data. One question for you regarding the data: after going through this, like, have you uncovered any trends or data that surprised you that you were not aware of?
Yeah. That's a really good question. I think one thing that surprised me was the persistence factor. So we found in analyzing these 1 million phone calls that persistence did pay off. So if you call right away, right? Like those first few calls, you're going to have a pretty successful rate in contacting people. But I didn't know that if you do up to 6 or 10 attempts of phone calls, we saw an 11% increase in more scheduled tours from that.
Hmm,
And I 11%, it's like, "Oh, maybe that doesn't sound quite as much," but if you look at how what those tours look like, if your team does really well with the tour and is able to convert from tour to move-in pretty well, that is significant of just, like, not giving up. It
yeah,
does
for
pay off.
sure. Do you have any data to, I mean, if I don't wanna throw mess you up if you don't, but do you have any data of when people would typically stop calling? Because I think about it in the sales world. A lot of
Mhm.
times, salespeople stop calling. I'm not speaking about senior living sales, I'm talking about just sales in general. I've heard after the 3rd call that people
Yeah.
kinda give up and move away, and you're saying that, continue to have that polite persistence, that it's gonna pay off. But I didn't know if you had any feedback to at what point do salespeople typically give up?
I don't because that would be more on the CRM side.
Okay.
with us being the contact center, we are following up consistently. So operators can choose from several different plans if they want us to follow up, just a short amount of time before we pass it over, or if they want more longer nurturing. But because we are a contact center, we're always following up. We can't
Yeah,
see what a sales community would typically do.
sure.
But from what I have heard in the conversations with operators, I would say that that's what you've said is pretty much is in line with what they would say,
Mhm.
which is usually a few attempts and then they go into cold leads,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And thank you for passing that note along. I really appreciate that. And just knowing, I think it gives salespeople hope that it's okay to go like to reach back out to them the seventh or eighth time. And just, in a way that you're looking to offer value. Always offer value first. And that polite persistence is going to pay off. And I appreciate you sharing that information.
I love the communities that do challenges. Like I've heard this from sales leaders where they have a competition for following up with old leads in their database, and they're like, you close somebody who you've been following up with for like 2 years or whatever. It's like
Yeah.
those stories are always super inspiring. And it's like timing is everything, like right place, right time, right message. You never know the deeper issue of like what's going on. You try and figure out as a salesperson as much as you can, but it sometimes is a timing thing for people.
It really is. And that's, being in business development myself,
Yeah.
it's all about focus on what you do control. You can't control the timing of things. You don't control some of those variables, but you do control how often, and you don't want to pester them, but just in a frequent, just reach out and then you get to know them. And so when it is that right time, they're going to reach out to you. And I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, and one of the things that we'll do for contact center too is cold lead campaigns. So we'll work with operators, and let's say they have an event coming up and they have leads in their database that have gone cold for whatever reason. We can do call out campaigns to that list of leads to help re-engage them too.
Oh, that's great.
So one pro tip I would give for a marketer listening is like, if you have an event coming up, can you do some call outs to those leads and try and re-engage them, because you never know, like that right message might hit them.
You never know if it's the right time too.
Yeah.
It's interesting how just sometimes that message can be impactful on a different day of the week, and
Yeah.
you never know what that might look like. And speaking of, do you like with what you're doing? Do you provide any extra coaching or support? I know we've talked about data and giving those best practices, but do you provide any additional coaching?
Yeah, that's so funny. So I saw a video today by Chrissy Freeze, who everybody knows is like,
Everybody loves Christy Freeze.
yeah, she's a good friend of mine. And
Yeah.
she did a video of like the number one reason why video doesn't work or something. And it got me thinking, I'm like, what's the number one reason why call centers don't work? Because
Mhm.
sometimes people, like I said, aren't excited about a call center. And I
Sure.
totally get it. Um, but I was thinking about that and I'm like, I think it's because sometimes like buy-in or at the community level, communities are like, oh, you're not going to do as good of a job. Like, don't take my leads. And it's really tough. And one thing I'm really proud of for my contact center client success team is that we have lots of measures in place to work really hard at the community level to build that relationship and do ongoing training. So it's not just like a one and done, you're done with onboarding. We consistently have after hours and education, and we have our operators meet with our trainers and our managers, and so it really does feel like a partnership. And so it's not necessarily a training program that we sell, but it's more of like how we do business, that
Yeah.
education is really important.
Yeah, I love that, and I think the education side, but the constant support in
It's
that
everything.
yeah, it's the coaching of, "Hey, you're doing good. Just think about this, change your tone here." And, it's stuff like that. I think that goes a long way and puts people's mind at ease when they are entering these calls.
Yeah, and we have our operators coach us, right?
Yeah.
Like, we have to be an extension of their brand, and everybody has a unique sales philosophy and great tips. And so we've built it into our onboarding process to have our operators train us and coach us so we can really be a good brand. And I think that that's something that is important, is like, yes, your vendors are always going to help be a trusted advisor. And we certainly do that with the data and the reporting, but it is a partnership and being able to also be coachable.
Yeah, that's so important to say, which is it's a two-way street.
Mhm.
It's you're hopefully bringing new ideas and information to the table, but at the same time, you're learning a lot from communities and what they're hearing, and that's going to improve the overall space.
Definitely.
So I want to move on to a common theme that we
Okay.
have every
Yeah.
week on the Move In Senior Living Marketing: AI. So,
Yes.
how is AI? I'm sure it helps really pull together a lot of data, through machine learning. But how is that affecting really call centers, and what do you see the future of? I mean, do you see that being continue to be more impactful, or I just love to get that insight from you?
100%. And I love talking about AI. So thank you for asking. And I love that this is a regular segment. And I'm sure our marketers listening love hearing the new AI tips and tricks.
It's
So
constantly changing too.
it
So,
is,
yeah,
it's
it's what
evolving.
we're speaking about now will be completely different than next year, which is exciting and scary at times, but it's a lot of fun. So,
Yeah.
thank you for your willingness to jump into this part of the conversation.
Sure. Yeah. So AI is a core pillar to our strategy at the contact center. Right now, we're using it for agent efficiency. So, call summarization, we're using it for data gathering. We also are using it for quality monitoring. So, we have strict quality measures in place. To grade our advocates to make sure they're doing a good job. And I mentioned earlier that we have been in the business for 10 years, senior living specific. So we use AI to listen to every single call and grade every single call so we can make adjustments in real time. And instead of having people listening, doing quality assurance, we do still have that, but having the AI component to make sure that we are truly optimized to be the best quality that we can be has been a game changer. And then I will tease that we have some really exciting AI opportunities on our roadmap that will be coming soon that we're working on. But it's something that, as you mentioned, is developing fast. And we know that we have to keep up because this is where things are going.
Yeah.
We think about a partnership approach. So we do have human agents today who are having the conversation with our leads that are coming in. But the way we see it is, how do we use this in partnership to make us more efficient and be able to give the leads the best experience? So stay tuned for more
Stay
updates
tuned.
soon. Yeah.
Well, I'm excited about that. So once you release that, please let us know, and we will share it on our. We have a LinkedIn channel that we try to promote, our guests and their services. So let me know about that. And it's one thing that kind of what you mentioned, which is, we think about AI, and I kind of joked around saying like sometimes it's a little scary to think about, but the truth is, it's when I think about AI, it allows us to be more human. I think before AI, I spent too much time in spreadsheets and trying to
Mhm.
like move through stuff. Well, now it helps speed that process up so we can be more human. And when it's all said and done, that's what we want to have connections with, which is other humans. And if we can get some of this other stuff off of our plates, and if we can learn, man, that's going to help us. And
Yeah.
so that's exciting news.
Well, and I will say, because so many marketers listen to this podcast, I'm going to like nerd out a little bit and share some of the ways that I've been using it just personally, aside
Please.
from the contact center. So, one thing that I've done is I've ditched stock photos. And I would highly encourage marketers who are listening to this as well with Sora or other types of, AI images. Think about when you go to senior living operators' websites. Like, a lot of times you see similar types of photos or images, and I totally understand why we use stock, but I have been able to personalize a lot of marketing with very, very custom images through great prompt engineering and even videos, right? Like, how can you use it to create more personalized, branded experiences that maybe you wouldn't get with stock? That's just one way, and I could nerd out and share more too.
I if you had I'll take anything you got because it's funny, I just wrote down services we used. I think that's something that we should start a LinkedIn post, which is, what are your favorite services? Because there's so many out there that when you sit down, and that's the fun thing about conferences, we start speaking about this, and I might tell you some of the video services or, some of the
Mhm.
other AI services. It's crazy what all is out there. And so I think it'd be good to have like one, like centralized place to have all this information.
Yeah, well, even think for the marketers, like how much money do you spend having to get your communities photographed and have like
Mhm.
great pictures?
Yeah.
Now think about, let's say, it's you want to showcase spring flowers, but you've got shadows that are overcasting. Like with generative AI, you can get rid of that and turn winter trees into spring trees. And all of a sudden, you saved your communities thousands of dollars by this professional photo shoot, and you're able to have something that's more personalized for the look that you're going for.
That's incredible. That's amazing that we have that technology at our hands now. So thank you for sharing that. Um, I got 2 more questions for you if you have
Okay.
time, Rachel.
Yeah, yeah.
Are there any specific KPIs that communities and call centers should be watching closely?
Absolutely. So we talked about speed to lead. I think
Mhm,
that's a great measurement, and I am starting to see more people measure that, which is good. Look at your inquiry to tour rate. That is a KPI that we like to track when we have operators come on with us. Like, what does that look like once you have better lead management practices in place? And a good contact center should be able to bump that at least a few percentage points within the first few months. So, if you are looking at a contact center, ask about that. And then one that I'm not seeing as many operators measure is your contact rate. So, how often are your sales team actually connecting with the leads that are coming
hmm.
in? And then, if you are using a contact center, make sure you're asking them that question as well.
I'm glad you highlighted that. That is
Mhm.
something I feel like does kind of get lost in the shuffle, but it's really important that we highlight that and mention that. So thank you for sharing that. And this is my last question before I start wrapping things up, and then it's a different group of questions. But so you have a treasure chest of data here that you presented. And I'm so thankful that you've brought this much data. I'm blown away how you had all this together. Is there is there a report that people can access? Is there a place they can get some of this data from you? Like, just because I know
Yeah.
others wanna get more of this information, it's just so valuable.
Sure. So I mentioned that we analyze 1 million calls, and we have a lot of data from that deep dive that we did and created a report from it. I shared some of that today in this
Mhm.
podcast, but I'm happy to send the report for any listeners who are interested in diving in more.
That'd be great. No, if reach out to Rachel to get that report, and I'll make sure your LinkedIn, your LinkedIn profile is in the show notes, so they can reach out directly to you to get more information. Um, all right, so let's talk about some other stuff. We've talked
Yeah.
about lead management. We talked about data. If you don't know, Rachel Keller has 2 other podcasts, and they're you gotta listen to these. One, we mentioned Christy Freeze earlier. You host one with Christy Freeze, and, like, I've been saying, like, you are 2 of my favorite people, and I love the energy you bring. So, please tell us more about the podcast you host with Christy, but you also have another podcast. Please, let us know about that.
Sure. So the podcast that you're talking about with Christy Freeze is called Good Day Senior Living, and it is a LinkedIn talk show, and it goes back to what we talked about at the beginning. Christy and I are very passionate about sharing the good news of senior living, and so we believe that there's so much good out there. We just want to amplify people's voices and really celebrate all the positive wins for the industry. So that is exclusively on LinkedIn. We always are willing to take submissions. So if you want to nominate a rising star in our industry, or if you want to just share some good news that's happening at your organization, you can reach out to me, and we would love to highlight you as on a segment. It's really fun. And then the other podcast I have is called Female Fridays, where I interview female leaders in the senior living industry. And it's all about the woman behind the title. So, where other shows may be talking more about strategies, of course, we talk about that too, but it's a way to really get to know the leader and learn lessons faster so you can advance your own career and have more women rise.
I love that. I love it's the human element. We get so
Mhm.
caught up in tools and trends and everything that a lot of times it's you want to recognize the person behind it. And when I say the person, we see the leader, we want to know the person behind it and understand what the hurdles that they had to go through to get to that situation, to get to that point and understand like, I'm sure with everybody there's that imposter syndrome, there's those challenges, but they got through it. And again, it goes back to the message that you and Christy bring, which is positivity. I love that. And I can't think of two better advocates for bringing positivity into the senior living space than you and Christy Free. So
Aw,
thank you
thank
so much.
you.
Like you are doing amazing things. Please check out that podcast. I'll make sure there's links to both of those in the show notes as well. So make sure you tune into those podcasts. The last thing I got to ask you, are we going to do the senior living steps challenge again? Because I thought that was amazing. I was blown away with steps. I'm a runner. I typically run about 60 miles a month or so.
Yeah,
I wasn't I
I
wasn't
know.
remotely in the top 30 ever. Like I would finish a run, but like I did good. I wouldn't be in the top 15 even after like an 8-mile run for the day. So it was a lot of fun. It was a good way to connect with people too and see others' names. So my question to you is, are you and Daniel going to get that going again at some point? I hope it's a yes.
Yes, shout out to Daniel West. So he's a good friend of mine, and we just both were talking like, "Oh, how fun would it be to do a steps challenge?" And that's something that's been true of my life. It's like I have an idea and I just do it, and I don't like think much of it. But so we decided we do it. We were blown away. We had more than 100 participants, which is absolutely incredible. And I was the same as you, Larry, but I was like at the very bottom of the pack. It was a lot of fun though. We raised a lot of money for the Alzheimer's Association. I think as a group we took more than 9 million steps in 1 month, which is
That's
pretty
incredible.
incredible. Yeah, and yes, we are going to do another challenge. We will be hosting one this fall, so be on the
Okay.
lookout for that. And we have had a lot of people ask for categories because it is such an intense competition, so we will be doing that too.
So it was Shannon Roy who was
Oh
the
my
leader in the
gosh,
pack. I
yes.
think there was talks about she just needs to be her own category than everybody else, right? Because like I was blown away. It's like there's no way I could ever catch her. So thank you for getting that together. Again, it's the steps. It did us a lot of good to get out and really push ourselves. But to raise money for Alzheimer's research, I think that's incredible. So thank you again for doing that. Thank you for being such a great ambassador in this space. You can see Rachel at a lot of conferences, connect with her. She has such great insight when it comes to all things senior living. So speaking of conferences, where are you going to be at any conferences coming up?
Absolutely. So I'm not sure when this airs, but I will be at all the fall conferences.
Okay.
I'll see you there. The one I guess we're already almost through summer. I'm traveling
It's
around a
hard to
little
believe.
bit, but yeah, I'll
Yeah.
be at all the big fall ones. So
Awesome. So Smash, with Leading Gauge, is that
yeah,
another
yeah.
one?
Leading
Okay.
age. You've got Nick. We'll
Okay.
try and go to as many as we can.
That's awesome. So find Rachel, like, connect with her on LinkedIn. She always has a lot of great insight there as well. Rachel, thank you for taking the time to chat today, and just looking forward to seeing you at the fall conferences.
Thank you so much, Larry. I appreciate being on the show.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I took a lot of notes. So again, I
Good.
knew that I would. So yeah, kudos to you for sharing so much information. All right, that's a wrap on another episode of the Move In Senior Living Marketing. A big thank you to Rachel Keller for bringing the data, the insights, and the energy to this conversation. If there's one thing you walk away with, it's this: lead management is not just a system, it's a story you're telling your prospects. And the way you respond can either build trust or break momentum. Here are a few takeaways I made notes of during this conversation. First, respond within 10 minutes. That fast response can increase your contact rate and dramatically boost your chances of booking a tour. Second, prioritize phone calls. Phone leads convert at more than 6 times the rate of form fills, so don't shy away from driving calls. And third, audit your after hours coverage. High intent leads often call on weekends and evenings. If you're not answering, you're missing out, especially on Saturdays, which see the highest tour booking rates. If you found this helpful, make sure to connect with Rachel on LinkedIn and ask her for that report. And until next time, let's go make some meaningful connections.